welcome to the Own Your Epic podcast. My name is Jay Dostal, author of the book Own Your Epic, Leadership Lessons in Owning Your Voice and Your Story. In this podcast, I highlight the stories and voices of educators across the country who are making a difference in schools and uncover what makes them exceptional leaders in their field. By sharing the voices and stories of others, we can all learn to appreciate that each of us is the author of our own epic and our experiences are relatable to others, if we are willing to share them. Let's get started on the Own Your Epic process. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own Your Epic podcast. This is Jay Dostal, and honestly, I'm really excited about the guests that I have on today. We have been talking about doing this for, I would want to say, a couple of months. We've just never been able to get our schedules to work out. But I couldn't ask for just like a more perfect guest for the podcast, because I have learned so much from him in the time that I've got to work from him. He's just been an awesome advocate for kids, for theater. He's been my daughter's teacher, is a friend of the family, and I'm just so excited that you get to learn a little bit more about him, because I think once you do, you'll know exactly why I think he's just an amazing educator. So without further ado, why don't you tell us who you are and what you do?
Hello, I'm excited to be here. My name is Trevor Cooperescue. I teach theater here at Fayetteville High School. Just today wraps up my 9th year of teaching, so next year's the Big 10. Wow, it has been quite a journey, these almost 10 years with new principals and new superintendents. You know, I joke and say I've had a new boss every year, so that's always been a roller coaster, but I think it's made me stronger as an educator. I'm so passionate about theater and really inspiring young minds in the arts for schools and to really carry on the legacy of teaching. I'm a son of a teacher. My mom is a teacher. She's taught for over 30 years, and it's something I've always wanted to do, and so I'm doing it. I'm living the dream.
So outside of your mom being a teacher, why did you want to become an educator? I mean, what does that draw, and why specifically theater? I mean, where did that passion come from?
So I grew up in a really small town in Arkansas, northeast Arkansas. I graduated with a class of like 70 people. There was no drama program in my school. And I was...
No drama?
No drama. Oh, there was drama, obviously, in a small town where you know everyone's phone number. This is before cell phones, right? So you knew everyone's 4-digit phone number to call home. You knew everyone's middle name in a class of 70. And you got to be careful who you date, because you might find out they're your cousin, you know? I mean, that they jokingly say that in Arkansas, but in northeast Arkansas, you got to check with your mom or dad. Hey, you know.
Gotcha.
No, but in my small town, theater wasn't a thing. It was so small, it was there wasn't that much of an interest in it, but I was this theater nerd. I was obsessed with soundtracks as a kid. Anytime I saw a movie, I'd be like, Mom, we gotta go get the soundtrack. Whether it had words or not, I just loved music. And I was always acting, and I wanted to be in movies. And so my sophomore year, my English teacher, who also was my civics teacher and my AP world history teacher and my youth director at church.
Small town school, yeah, absolutely.
Teachers, you do it all.
Yeah.
I really wanted to do a play. I was so excited. I had some friends who I thought would want to do it, and I said, can we please have a drama class? Can we please? We're missing out. We have band, we have choir. Why don't we have theater? And she said, okay, I'll go take the practice, and we'll do theater next year, but I'm going to need your help. So my junior year, we offered a drama class, and I helped the teacher come up with lessons and things, and we did a play.
What play was it?
Super fun. You know, it was called Under the Big Top. It was this silly circus play. I have it in my classroom, my script still, you know. I would never do it now because it's just so campy. But it was so fun, and the community loved it. And then the class grew. We were able to do 2 sections my senior year because so many people thought it was so cool. And I knew that, you know, the stage was my calling. I was really interested in directing, but I knew I was going to go to Florida State University, a big musical theater school, you know, but I couldn't afford it. And I remember I'm like, well, I'm at least going to go across the state to the University of Arkansas because I needed to get out of that small town. You know, that's every kid's dream. And so I did. I joined University of Arkansas to do a major in theater, thinking I would just stay there a year and transfer, you know, back to a bigger school. But I fell in love with the program and the professors. And through that, I fell in love with directing. I took a directing class and thought it was just so much fun. And directing is teaching. And I just really fell in love with watching these professors teach us the skill of acting. And I just got so obsessed with the origin of history, the history of theater, and how do we become the character, and learning that empathy and the psychology of it, that really I realized, just to be blunt, you know, you can hear it in my voice, I was going to be a typecast person. My professor said, Trevor, you will never be the lead. You are going to always be the gay best friend. You'll be a great ensemble member. And that was really hard to digest because, you know, your dream is, I want to be famous. I want to be on Broadway. But I, to this day, am so grateful for that professor telling me that reality check, because this is in 2006. And if you look at theater in that time, there weren't many modern musicals or plays that leaned into a serious, you know, LGBTQ plus roles. It was always the sidekick character, and there weren't many. And so I realized, oh, well, there's not much work for me. But I kind of fell back into that whole, I love directing, I get it. And my mom, who's a teacher, she taught second grade. She always said that I was such a good teacher, that I was good. I was a babysitter and youth group. I would teach, I would do children's moments at school. I would teach lessons. And I just knew, she's like, you should combine those two skills. And so I'm like, I'll think about it. But I ended up graduating with theater, and I immediately was like, no, I want to do this. I want to teach. I want to direct. And so I jumped straight into my MAT and got lucky and came to Fayetteville High School to intern and connected with the amazing Warren Rosenauer, who's taught for 30 plus years and
is back.
And he's running our theater, and I learned the most from him. But yeah, long story, like long-winded, it was just following my passion and kind of honing it into this amazing profession. And now it's so great being in a larger school of Fayetteville. I still see those students like me who aren't necessarily outcasts. I was not an outcast in high school. I was involved in everything. I was most spirited, class president, you know, in all the things. But my passion was theater, and I found my people, and I kind of see that, and that's kind of who I reach out to, is that you see those kids in theater and at Fayetteville High School, that it speaks to them, and I like to hone that and inspire them to follow it. So,
wow.
yeah.
So there's a lot to unpack there. I've got to ask you some side questions that are off script here. Well, first of all, just know that I was voted biggest mouth in high school, my senior superlative. I know that doesn't surprise you, and I know it doesn't surprise our listeners as well. But I want to go back to the notion of, you didn't come to teaching. Teaching came to you, which I think is a very interesting portion of this career, because, you know, in my role as an administrator and hiring teachers, I've started to see more people who are coming to teaching now from a chosen profession that they went and had experience maybe in the business world or something else, but they found out that they found that love for teaching later. They didn't. They came to teaching, as opposed to, you know, like me. I knew, but both of my parents were teachers. I was going to go into teaching. No matter, this is what I grew up with, and so I think there's a very different approach to that, because some people look at teaching just as you can't make any money. They view teaching through a certain lens, but it isn't until they have some experiences, whether it be in post-secondary or in the workforce, when they get to be around kids, that they really find out that teaching is, oh yeah, this might be something different. And so I thought it was very interesting that that was your journey. I do have to ask you though, because you said you really loved the music as a child. What is the best soundtrack that you have come across? Like what's that soundtrack that like this? It's like asking me what my favorite movie is, and I said I'll give you a top 5. I know I'm putting you on the spot, but what's the best musical soundtrack you think right now?
Ooh, the best musical soundtrack right now.
Because I'll tell you what mine is.
Okay, you got to.
You want to take a guess?
Right now?
Right now.
Oh, well, I know you love Wicked, but is it something new? Like, what do you think?
I love Wicked. I'll sing Wicked, and I love Hamilton, but mine is Rent.
Oh yeah.
I actually love the Rent soundtrack.
I mean, you can just hit play and just
like
rock
I was
out.
playing La Vie Boheme
Yes.
on the ride to work today, and I'm singing. If people were going to come by, they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And you've heard my singing voice. I can't sing a lick, but I just belt it out. And I can imagine if somebody came up like, "What in the world is that guy doing?" So, what is yours?
Man, that is so hard, Jay. That is just so hard to think of. I have so many. I'm a weirdo because, like, I have a soundtrack for every mood or for every kind of, like, what's going on in my life. Do I need a pump-up soundtrack? Do I need to get in my feels?
So what's your soundtrack right now, end of the school year? What's that one? Like, you're excited for the summer.
My summer exciting soundtrack. You know what's weird? Because I'm seeing it next month, is A Chorus Line.
Oh, okay.
A Chorus Line's coming to the Walton Arts Center, and I love that because it's a soundtrack of stories and hope and just like people, like they're trying to like start something new. And I don't know, that's kind of what I've been listening to. So that's the first one that comes out. It's one of my favorite musicals. Okay. It's A Chorus Line. Okay. So I can say that one is a good one. I'm really into that one.
Who are your biggest influences? I know you talked about your mom. I know you talked about Warren Rosenauer, but who are those people in your life that really push you to excel and be the amazing and awesome person that you are?
I have 3, and I've already said 2. So obviously my mom, like everyone loves their mom, but like she is the best teacher. I mean, seeing her growing up in that small town, like everyone would just rave about her. Like she is to this day. She retired from teaching and was retired for maybe 6 months, and the school district called and begged her back, which that says a lot for someone.
Yeah, it does.
A school district that she had only been teaching at for, 5 or 6 years, because she moved up here to Fayetteville my sophomore year of college. I was going to school, and I told her, I said, "Hey, you should come up to Fayetteville." I have a younger sister. She's 9 years younger than me. And I said, "The education system up here is so great. You should start new. Like, come up here with me. Fayetteville's great." And so she did. She came up here and got a job at Root Elementary. And what's cool is she taught 2nd grade, but she had her master's in special education. And so she found a job in special education. And it's so interesting is I asked her recently, why did you switch to special education? I'm like, that is so hard. Like, being a high school teacher, I think our special education teachers have the hardest job. I do. The paperwork, the patience, every student is so different. And I just feel like it's such a hard career. And she said, "I love it. It's my passion. It's actually what I went to school for." And I never knew that until like this year, that she actually went to college to be a special education teacher, but she got a job in our small town in 2nd grade. And she just stayed at it because she was good at it. But I do remember growing up that my mom always had the special needs kids in her 2nd grade classroom. So this was before inclusion was a thing, that the students typically would be excluded, but my mom was an advocate of, no, put them in my classroom. So she was like ahead of the curve there. And so it actually made me grow as a human, and it's made me a stronger teacher because I grew up around special needs kids, and so I wasn't scared of the different. I saw my mom embraced and loved the difference, and that helped me so much embrace and love people, and it's made me a strong teacher because I'm not scared of those students who are lower in, whether it be in academic or in communication or in emotional baggage. Like, I get it because I grew up around it. So she's inspired me so much to see that it takes someone who wants to do it out of love, and just passion. And so she's inspired me so much. I also have to give a shout out to my theater teacher I mentioned earlier, the teacher who would go and get a certification for their students because they know it's what they need and want, and that it could be something positive for the school and the culture and for the students. I mean, the fact that she can teach everything. I mean, she was a volleyball coach. She does the school newspaper. Now she's doing school yearbook. Like, she's still teaching in that small school. And I'm like, wow, I want to be her. Like, that is awesome. If you talk about and own your epic about being awesome or being cool, like, Coach Wallace is awesome because she gave it all, but she's also really cool. So she was both. And then, of course, Warren Rosenauer, who teaches here at Fayetteville High School. Gosh, for a man to be a one-person drama program and do the amazing, he did like three plays a year and one act by himself. Like, I cannot fathom doing all of that work. Like, his love was this school and his program. Like, that was his life. And I just think he's incredible to do that. And everyone loves him, and he knows everyone. That's my goal, is I want to teach. Fayetteville was my long-term goal to one day work here, and I got so lucky that my first job is here. But now I'm like, if I can fill one shoe of a Warren Rosenauer shoes, like, I've succeeded. Like, I want to be known and remembered as someone who impacted students beyond theater, right? Because that's what teaching is. And that's funny that you said teaching comes to you or you come to teaching. I really don't think, yep, if you're really good in your content, that's great, but that doesn't make you a great teacher. Teaching isn't really the content. It's connecting with students and making them feel special, or like crafting what they're good at and giving them that inspiration. Like, that's kind of what I've leaned more into with teaching, is just really connecting with students and finding a shared passion.
Well, it's interesting to say that because you know this, because I've talked to you about it. Connection is like, connect is my one word for this year. So I'm going to fill your bucket here a little bit, because you talk about you want to be in that realm of having an impact, and we've talked about this, and I'm going to continue to talk about this, but you've done that for my daughter. My daughter, when she thinks about her time at Fayetteville High School, she mentions Mr. Cooperescue all the time. You were, in fact, the first teacher from Fayetteville High School that she met when we were transitioning up here. You were at a Harry Potter convention. You were dressed as Harry Potter, and we saw at it wasn't the Graduate at the time, it was, I can't even remember what it was before the Graduate, but...
Yeah, it was a C, something with a C.
Yeah, whatever. But you walked around the corner, and they're like, whoa, hey, Trevor, how's it going? This is my daughter. She's very into theater. She still remembers that day. So the impact that you have had on her, because I see it on a daily basis, is there. And I know that you've had that impact on others. So you need to understand that you are well on your way of filling the shoes of Mr. Rosenauer. And I know that's a tough job, but you're not Warren Rosenauer. You're Trevor Cooperescue. And you're forging your own path, which is awesome. So, all right. So you mentioned Own Your Epics. I got to ask a question about this because it relates to that topic. So you have finished the book. We've talked about this. Two of the steps in the Own Your Epic process are curating and cultivating those stories or moments in your life that help amplify your voice. And can you talk to me a bit about maybe what is that one story or maybe a couple of moments in your life that you find yourself telling people about you so they can get to know you? Like they had such a significant impact. I think the story you shared already about the theater program in high school, and the fact that teacher would go and get that endorsement so you could have a theater program, that impacted you and kind of forged this. Are there any other moments like that are just either personal or professional that just like, yeah, this has really shaped the person that I am, the educator that I am?
I think one of the best stories I like to tell that has shaped me as an educator and in life comes from my first year of teaching. my very first solo year of teaching at Fayetteville High School, and it goes back to even Own Your Epic, and you talk about it in the book, is like being able to say no. And my first year of teaching in a new school, you want to make an impact. You want to let everyone know like you're dependable, that you're trustworthy, that you're not only liked, like you said in your book, that you're not only liked, but you can trust. And I really love that when you talk about that. There are people that you can trust, but you don't like very much, and you have people that you don't like very much, but you can trust them, right?
Right.
I want to be both, as we all want to be. But I remember that first year, if you're a first year teacher, please listen, like take this advice. Don't say yes to everything, and say yes to what you're passionate about, and know your limits and boundaries. I was asked to take on graduation the first year. I'm like, yes, I'll totally do that. And then I was asked to help, I'm always wanted to be a helper. And I had a teacher who asked me to do an overnight trip and take students to a forensics debate tournament. And I did not know the students. It was a 3-hour trip. And I said, sure, yeah, I'll do that for you. And I went on this trip not knowing the students, and I didn't know the rules and what's going on. And I remember like the night after the first day, I'm doing room checks, and I open one of the doors, and the guys have brought an Xbox 360, and they're playing Xbox, and I'm like, what are you doing? I was so confused. I'm like, don't you have rounds tomorrow? And they're like, oh no, we lost our rounds today, so we're done. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And so I was just like, again, I don't know what's going on. And then there were some other silly incidents that happened. And then the next day on the way home, on the bus ride home, a student got extremely ill. I mean, so ill that we had to go to the hospital. So I'm a first year teacher in a hospital parking lot with me and a bus driver and 20 kids. And it's now 11 o'clock at night. We're 3 hours from home, and I'm inside the hospital with this kid sick, like waiting on his parents to get there. And it was the most traumatizing experience because I've never done this before. And I'm by myself in charge of kids.
How old are you at this time?
I am, oh my gosh, how old was I?
22, 23?
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know what is going on.
With some 18-year-olds.
Yes, yes. I mean, kid getting sick on the bus, then in the hospital, he's scared. I'm trying to be like this dad, which I'm not a dad. I'm 23, 22. I'm like an uncle or an older brother, right? So this whole time, I'm just like cursing this teacher that I'm like, why did I say yes to this? But I got through it, and it made me stronger. But I can tell you the next time that teacher asked, like a week or two later, hey, can you go again? I was like, no, I'm sorry. I can't help you with this because I don't know your students. I don't know your program. And I just feel like this is outside of my realm, right? And
that's like the plague of educators, and I knew you know this because as much as you tell yourself that you should say no, you're an educator, and I know that you want to help.
Yes.
And the teacher's heart is one where you want to try to save every single person, you want to help in every single scenario, but if anything has kind of magnified that over that you can't continue that trend, this pandemic teaching thing has kind of gotten us to that point where, and I know we've had this conversation before, that you can't, first of all, solve or save everybody. You can't fill up other people's buckets if your own bucket is not full itself. And at some point, you have to say no. And I remember one of the most difficult conversations I think that you've had with me is when you came in and you said, I have to give up the PAC manager role, Performing Arts Center manager role, because I'm going to have twin boys and I need to spend time with it. And I know that being part of the theater program here and helping Warren and doing all of that is like, it's part of who you are. And giving that up and saying, no, I can't do this anymore because I have something else that I need to do was very difficult. Like, I remember you coming in, like, please don't be upset with me. I'm like, I'm not upset with you. You should absolutely spend more time with your kids. But do you find that it gets easier to say no over time once you kind of figure out what you're, like, I guess the question is, how good at you are you at setting boundaries and expectations on your time?
I am going to pat myself on the back because in the past 3 years or so, I've gotten so much better at it. I think becoming a parent has helped me grow so much in that. One of our assistant principals here, Byron Ziegler, he's been my evaluator, and he has been my constant evaluator and admin my 9 years here, and I love him. He talks about he would go in a foxhole for you, and I am so proud to be one of his foxhole people. And he gave me the best advice, and this kind of goes with both things for a second. I went to him before I talked to you about the PAC thing. The dream is like, it's a person's dream to get paid to run a theater, an amazing theater. And I love managing. I love getting to meet people in the community. I love seeing other programs because I love all fine arts.
Sure.
Just like, it's my obsession. And I was getting paid to do it. I'm like, this is awesome. But the time is so crazy. Like, I was there every day till 10 at night, like every day. And so
Because high schools never shut down.
High schools never shut down, right? And I'm like, man, I don't want to give this up, but I have these kids. And I was telling Byron, I was like, I just need to take a step back because they're babies. They're only babies once. I need them to know me. I need to be around. It's so important. And he stopped me and said, Trevor, I'm going to tell you that what you're looking at this is wrong. They actually don't need you the most right now. A lot of people think that your kids need you at this age, but the most time they're going to need you is at the dinner table when they're in middle school, and they're going to need you to say, how was your day today? What's going on in your life today? That is what I think parents forget about, and it's resonated with me more now as a high school teacher. I feel that's what we're missing for our connection, is that our high school students aren't having that connection with their parents. What do high school kids do at dinner? They're probably watching Netflix in their room, on their phone. I would love to poll and see how many high school students eat dinner with their families and get asked, how are you doing? In person, not on a text, on a phone call. And I think, to me, I go, wow, Byron, you're so right. So I don't see myself ever doing pack management again and stuff until my boys are out of high school, because I don't want to miss those moments.
Yeah. It's so interesting you say that because my wife, Melanie, special education teacher, and our two kids, we make it a point to have dinner with each other, which sometimes can be a fiasco because Melanie, I just want to engage in conversation. Melanie brings a project to the table, like we're going to have conversation. And one night she brought up the book of The Daily Stoic, where you're talking about the, if you don't know anything about Stoicism, just go check it out. Anyway, my daughter, very opinionated, very articulate, and she and I are peas in a pod, and we just butt heads. And we actually had to, we got in an argument over The Daily Stoic to the point where Melanie was crying, Mason yelled, said, why do you guys have to fight about this over the dinner? But you know what? That's a moment that I always will remember because we still came back together. We still eat around the table. We still have those conversations. And yes, I agree with you that if more parents and more families would do that, we might not have as many of these issues that we see coming around us. So I'm glad you brought that up. Dude, we're at 28 minutes. I know the time just flies.
Wow.
What are some closing thoughts you have? I mean, this is kind of your free time for you to say whatever you need to say to anybody who's listening to this, educators, parents, whatever.
I'm going to refer back to Own Your Epic. I really just loved that. I read it in one sitting. I did. I started it.
So you're the one reader.
There should be. If you've not read it, pick it up. And I'm genuinely saying that. I'm a theater teacher, and I'm reading this book on leadership because theater is leadership. You're directing. Teaching is leadership. We're all leaders. But I think coming off this pandemic, coming off the isolation, I really liked the quote. I really love that you said, you're not a robot. You're a human being with emotions that matter. Let people see your humanity. Also, forgiveness is about having the courage to drop the baggage that is weighing you down and allowing yourself to continue on your epic without someone's prior actions controlling you. And those two really stood out to me coming off of this. I think it's really important that we remember that we're all humans, that we all had some introspective time at home for 2 years to kind of reevaluate our life, our professions. I think we're all seeing a mass exodus in all professions, not just education, all professions. People are changing careers. And I think I've learned, though, don't make rash decisions. I think a lot of people are just jumping ship quickly, but not thinking it through. But then also allow yourself to think it through and allow yourself to follow that passion, because I think we're really seeing the importance of family, the importance of mental health, the importance of owning your epic. And I hope that people can take these, this hard time and see the positive in it, that I hope that you've all had a chance to reflect. I know I struggled with, man, this profession is hard. And I considered, could I do something else? And the answer is yes. But at the end of the day, when you dig deep, it's yeah, but what I'm doing does matter. I am passionate about it. And just remembering the positives and holding on to those, and just keep following that heart and that drive and passion of why you started it in the first place. So that's kind of where I'm at.
That's so cool. Well, hey, we're at that time. I have to tell you that one of my favorite people, just because you have never pulled punches. You just come in and you tell me exactly how it is, whether I want to hear it or not, and we have those conversations. We've got that relationship that we can do it. But one of my favorite people. I love you, brother. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on this podcast. It means the world to me. I'm excited about, even though we won't be seeing each other physically pretty soon here, we will stay connected forever, just because you've always got a place in my heart with my family, with me. And so thank you very much. And that is the end of this episode of the podcast. So I hope you tune in for the next episode. And until then, own your epic.
Thank you for joining me on today's podcast. To find out more about Own Your Epic, check out my website at ownyourepic.blogspot.com, where you can purchase my book or subscribe to all the latest blog and podcast updates. Until next time, own your epic and share your voice and your story. It matters and can make a difference in the lives of others.